A luxury cruise filled with laughter and music turned silent when a canine dog suddenly locked onto a waiter. Passengers froze as the dog barked louder and louder, refusing to let go. And when security finally checked what he was hiding, what they uncovered left the entire ship in shock. Could you guess what it was? Here's the full story. But before we jump in, drop your favorite memory with a dog in the comments and make sure you're subscribed, because the next story coming up is one you really don't want to miss. The cruise ship cut through the Atlantic waters like a floating city, lights glittering against the dark horizon. Families, couples, and groups of travelers wandered the upper deck, enjoying the music and laughter that filled the night air. To many, it was a vacation of a lifetime, but hidden beneath the cheerful atmosphere, something unusual was brewing, something no one had expected. On board was a small security unit partnered with a trained canine named Rex. Rex was known for his keen instincts and sharp responses, a Belgian Malinois who had been with law enforcement before being assigned temporarily for cruise ship security. His handler, Officer Harris, trusted him more than any machine or scanner. On ships where thousands of strangers gathered from across the world, a dog's nose often detected what human eyes overlooked. For most of the evening, Rex had done routine sweeps, calmly walking through the corridors, sniffing luggage, and greeting children who wanted to pat his coat. Nothing seemed out of place until the dining hall began to fill for the late-night buffet. That was when Rex's demeanor shifted. The moment a waiter in crisp white uniform carrying a tray of drinks walked past, Rex froze. His ears stiffened, tail locked, and muscles tensed. He let out one bark, short, loud, and sharp. Passengers turned, some chuckling at the sudden sound. Harris gave a slight tug at the leash, assuming Rex had reacted to food smells drifting from the kitchen. But Rex did not budge. Instead, the dog took one step forward, eyes locked on the waiter. Another bark erupted, deeper this time, followed by a low growl. Harris frowned. He had learned long ago that Rex did not waste energy barking at random. Something about that waiter had triggered him. The waiter, a young man with neatly combed hair and steady movements, forced a smile as guests watched. He adjusted his tray nervously, pretending to ignore the dog, but Rex would not relent. He lunged forward, leash straining, teeth bared but not biting, barking in bursts that echoed through the hall. Every head turned. The festive music seemed to fade beneath the alarm carried by Rex's voice. Harris felt his pulse quicken. Dogs like Rex were trained to detect much more than narcotics or explosives. They sensed hidden anxiety, concealed items, even faint chemical traces humans could never pick up. Harris's first thought was whether the man carried something dangerous beneath his uniform. But why would a cruise ship waiter be a threat? The manager of the dining hall rushed over, alarm spreading across his face. Guests began whispering. Their meals paused, all eyes locked on the dog and the man. The waiter set down his tray carefully, as though afraid sudden movement might worsen the situation. His face was pale, beads of sweat glistening under the warm light. He looked toward the exit, his eyes darting in a way Harris had seen countless times before in suspects hiding something. Harris gave Rex the command to sit, trying to control the scene. But Rex refused. His entire body stiffened further, nose pointed directly at the waiter's chest, barking louder, sharper, each sound filled with urgency. Harris had learned long ago not to ignore Rex's persistence. Passengers shifted uncomfortably. A few took out their phones, recording the incident, while others pulled their children close. The once lively dining hall had grown tense and silent, except for Rex's relentless bark. Questions filled Harris's mind. Was the man carrying contraband? A weapon? Something dangerous smuggled on board? But why would Rex react so strongly? He usually signaled with a calm sit when he detected ordinary contraband. This was different. This was urgent, almost desperate. The ship's security officers approached quickly. The waiter raised his hands, insisting he was only doing his job, his voice trembling but his words quick. The manager vouched for him, saying he had been hired recently for the voyage. Yet Rex would not be convinced. His nose lifted, then lowered, tracing invisible trails around the man's body. Harris decided they could not ignore it. He asked security to escort the waiter aside for inspection. The passengers murmured, torn between curiosity and unease. Some demanded to know what was happening, others guessed wildly. Harris knew the cruise line valued peace above all, but ignoring Rex would be a mistake. As the waiter was led toward a quieter corridor, Rex followed closely, his barking replaced by a low, steady growl. Harris noticed something strange. The man's steps faltered slightly, as though he carried more weight than visible. His hand brushed the side of his jacket nervously, like someone protecting a hidden pocket. They reached the small security room near the kitchen. Harris ordered the man to place his belongings on the table. The waiter hesitated, his eyes darting to the exit once again. Rex lunged suddenly, his nose pressing against the waiter's side, growling in a tone Harris rarely heard, a sound reserved for when the dog sensed imminent danger. Harris locked eyes with the man. Something was wrong, very wrong. The security officers moved in, checking the man's jacket, but it was not a weapon they found, nor drugs or alcohol. Instead, beneath the layers of fabric pressed close to his chest, was a small bundle wrapped in cloth. The man's face turned white as they carefully unwrapped it. Rex sat finally, his growling stopped, but his eyes never leaving the bundle. Harris leaned closer, and for the first time in his career, his breath caught. Inside the folds of fabric was not contraband, it was something else. Something that explained Rex's intensity, something that would soon shock every single person on that ship. The passengers did not yet know, the officers had not yet announced it, but the mystery was unfolding, and Rex had been right all along. And as the small bundle began to stir with the faintest sound, Harris realized this was only the beginning of a story that would ripple far beyond the cruise. The room was silent except for the faintest sound coming from the bundle. Soft, fragile, almost impossible to mistake. It was the cry of a baby. The officers froze. Harris's eyes widened as he carefully unwrapped the last layer of cloth. There, curled in the fabric, was a tiny infant no older than a few weeks. Its cheeks were flushed, breath shallow, and eyes blinking against the harsh fluorescent light of the security room. Gasps filled the air. One officer muttered under his breath, unable to process what he was seeing. The waiter's hands trembled, his voice cracking as he tried to explain, but words failed. Rex sat perfectly still now, chest rising and falling, gaze fixed on the newborn he had fought so hard to reveal. Harris understood in that instant why Rex had been so relentless. Dogs were trained to detect sense of danger, but they also reacted to the fragile, vulnerable, and hidden. Rex had sensed the tiny life pressed against the man's chest, suffocating in secrecy. The man collapsed into a chair, head in his hands. It took long minutes before he could form words. His story tumbled out in fragments, each piece more startling than the last. He was not an ordinary cruise waiter. He had been hired under false credentials just weeks before the ship set sail. And the child in his arms, his sister's baby, had been smuggled on board. The explanation seemed too surreal, but as he continued, the room pieced together the truth. His sister had fallen into dangerous circumstances in their home country. The child's safety had been threatened by those who wanted to use the baby for leverage in a financial dispute. The man, desperate to save the infant, had taken the only chance he saw to flee aboard the cruise ship and try to reach relatives waiting in the United States. His plan had been simple in his mind: conceal the baby, keep it quiet, and pass himself off as crew until the ship docked. But he had underestimated two things: the ship's security measures and the instincts of a K-9 who missed nothing. The officers exchanged uneasy glances. Smuggling a child across borders was not just a crime, it was a matter of life and safety. Yet as they looked at the infant's frail body, none of them could deny the raw desperation etched across the man's face. He had not been smuggling drugs or weapons. He had been smuggling innocence, trying to protect what little family he had left. But rules were rules. The ship's captain was notified, as well as international authorities. The news spread quickly among the crew and, inevitably, the passengers. Rumors ran wild. Some claimed it was a kidnapping. Others whispered of black market trafficking. Everyone wanted to know why a canine had barked so ferociously at a waiter. By the next morning, the dining hall was buzzing with speculation. Some passengers avoided the waitstaff altogether. Others demanded answers from security. Harris kept Rex close, the dog still alert, as if guarding the very secret he had uncovered. The child, now cared for by medical staff on board, was found to be malnourished but alive. Had Rex not alerted when he did, the baby might have remained hidden too long in suffocating fabric. The thought chilled Harris. As the investigation continued, more connections unraveled. Records revealed inconsistencies in the man's employment file. The cruise line's HR team had been duped by falsified documents. More troubling still, background checks suggested that individuals tied to the threats against the baby had managed to book tickets on the same voyage. It meant danger might still lurk somewhere among the thousands of passengers. This realization tied the pieces together. Rex had not just saved the baby. He might have prevented a larger scheme unfolding at sea. The ship's captain gathered the senior crew and security officers. A decision had to be made. Should the man be detained until the ship docked, or should authorities be alerted immediately to intercept at the next port? And what about the baby? Where would it go and who would protect it until safety was ensured? Through it all, Rex remained at the center. Wherever the baby was carried, Rex followed. Tail low but eyes sharp, as if he had appointed himself guardian of the child he had rescued. Passengers who once viewed him as just a working dog now saw him as something else entirely, a silent protector who sensed what no one else could. Days passed, each filled with tension. Officers discreetly monitored suspicious passengers, tracing every movement. The man who had smuggled the baby remained under watch, cooperating fully, his only request being that the child be kept safe. He admitted to breaking the law, but his plea was clear. He had acted out of love, not malice. Finally, as the ship neared its docking port in Miami, U.S. authorities prepared to board. Passengers lined the decks, buzzing with anticipation, some still whispering about the mysterious incident that had shaken the voyage. The truth was no longer a secret. Everyone knew a K-9 had uncovered something extraordinary, though not all knew the full details. As the authorities stepped on board, the baby, now more alert and stronger from proper care, let out a tiny cry. Rex pricked his ears and leaned closer, as if reassured that the child was safe. Harris felt a lump rise in his throat. In all his years with K-9 units, he had never seen his partner so protective. The final resolution came in a way that surprised everyone. After reviewing the man's full story, the authorities confirmed that the threats to the child had been real and documented. Instead of immediate imprisonment, the man was placed under investigation but also under consideration for asylum. The baby was handed to social services, but with promises of protection and care until family could be located. As they disembarked, passengers applauded Rex. Some even called him the true hero of the cruise. Cameras flashed, news outlets swarmed, and yet Rex seemed unmoved. He had done what he always did, followed his instincts, protected the innocent, and never let doubt cloud his duty. For Harris, the conclusion was bittersweet. The mystery had been solved, the baby saved, and the passengers safe. Yet it reminded him of something deeper, that in moments of uncertainty, trust often lay not in technology or procedure, but in the silent persistence of a dog who refused to give up. That night, as the ship emptied and the chaos settled, Harris knelt beside Rex. He placed a hand on the dog's head, whispering thanks only he and Rex would ever share. The cruise had been filled with laughter, tension, fear, and shock, but in the end, it had given everyone a story they would never forget. And at the heart of it all was Rex, the K-9 who barked at a waiter and uncovered a secret that changed everything. If you felt that rush of suspense and relief, just imagine the stories you might miss if you don't hit subscribe right now. Every day we uncover true moments where instinct, courage, and heart change everything. Don't be the one hearing about it later. Join us, hit that like button, and be here when the next story drops.